Assalamu alaikum everyone. क्या हाल है आप लोगों के? वालेकुम अस्सलाम. Sir, 1 week है. Please do daily long streams for admats. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Don't worry about it. How much should a person score for getting an A admats? Like what's the depends on the threshold, depends on the difficulty level of the paper, depends on the threshold, so many things it depends on. Walaikum assalam. Yeah, tomorrow I'm thinking I'll probably be taking tomorrow I'm thinking to take an admath mock, most likely, inshallah. So what is the plan for the streams? Like which topics will you stream first? So my plan is to stream all the difficult ones like vectors, integration I've already done. I think differentiation also I've already done. So I'll probably do trigonometry, inshallah. I'll do functions. Yeah. P3 vectors. P3 देखो हो सकता है मैं P3 की stream कल रखूँ. Sir, did you see IGCSE P4 Maths? Yeah, I did. It's been a while. I've done kinematics. I've done kinematics recently only. How many parts will velocity vectors have? देखो मेरा इरादा तो है to cover it in one part. Let's see if we can do that. If not, then we'll do two. ठीक है, you're welcome. All right, so let's start. Let's not waste any more time. So first we'll go over the concepts, okay? And I would appreciate if you guys like the stream if you haven't done that yet, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. Let's start. So let's start, just a second. Okay, so velocity vectors. Please don't confuse this with relative velocity. Okay, velocity vectors is something else. Relative velocity is something else. Relative velocity is no longer part of the syllabus. It was, I think, removed way back in 2018. ठीक है. अच्छा बेटा अभी जो कर रहे हैं ना उस पर फोकस करें. मैं एक टॉपिक स्टार्ट करता हूँ, आप लोग बोलते हैं सर वो टॉपिक करें, वो टॉपिक करता हूँ, आप लोग बोलते हैं सर वो करें. ओके, सो लेट्स फोकस ऑन व्हाट वी आर डूइंग राइट नाउ. लेट्स नॉट वरी अबाउट the topics that I haven't done. Okay, this topic is also important, right? This topic is not, we're not doing this just for fun. We're doing this because this is part of the syllabus. Okay, so let's focus on what we're doing. So today is 10th of May. Now, there are some prerequisites. Okay, there are some prerequisites which you guys need to be aware of. Okay, what are those prerequisites? Number one, you guys need to be aware of bearings, okay, which I'm sure you are, okay. And then number two, you guys also need to be aware of basic trigonometry, okay, basic and further trigonometry. Basic and further trigonometry, okay, and this basically is assumed knowledge. Okay, this is when you're doing admaths, because this is part of math, so this comes under assumed knowledge because it's something that you do in math, so obviously you're expected to know this in admaths also. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll be keeping a non-calculator mock tomorrow, inshallah. Okay, IGCSE students miss you. Yeah, I also miss teaching IGCSE Math. It's been a while, but inshallah starting from August. Okay, so now remember, science student might already know the difference, but for non-science students, there's a difference between velocity and speed. Okay, there's a difference between velocity and speed. What's the difference? Velocity is something that has magnitude and it has direction. Okay, now when we say magnitude, we basically means the value of the speed. Okay. And when we say direction, that direction could be bearing also. Okay, so when we say magnitude, it basically means the value of the speed. Okay, and when we say direction, that could be bearing. Okay, possibly. Bearing is not the only way to write the direction. Okay, one of the many ways is bearing also. अच्छा, also एक और ज़रा छोटी सी example कर लेते हैं. Let's say एक object है. Okay, so you have a, let's say you have a tennis ball. If you throw it up in the air, okay, and let's say you throw it up in the air and it's going up with a velocity of 5 meters per second. So if we're talking about velocity, we will say 5 meters per second. And usually what happens is, with velocity, upwards is normally taken as positive. Okay? With velocity, upwards is normally taken as positive. But if the same ball is coming down, okay, and let's say at a certain point its speed is 5 meters per second, so what are we going to say is the velocity? The velocity is negative 5 meter per second. Okay, so the idea is that when we're talking about velocity, we have to give it a direction as well. Okay, when we're talking about velocity, we have to give a direction as well. But if, let's say, we're talking about speed, okay, so speed means that we're not concerned in which direction the object is heading. We'll simply say 5 meters per second. Why? Because when it comes to speed, the direction does not matter. The direction does not matter. Okay? Now, also remember one thing, that instead of using xy, we use ij. Okay, in vectors, instead of using xy, we use ij. Okay, so your horizontal axis basically is your y-axis. Okay, so instead of x, हम इसको I बोलते हैं, and instead of y, we call it j. So in the first quadrant, just like x and y are both positive, in the first quadrant, I and j are both positive. In the second quadrant, x is negative, so that means I in the second quadrant is negative. Actually, how do we use I and j? We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay. Yes, beta, I'll do resultant vectors also. Okay, I'll do resultant vectors. Yeah, resultant vectors are in arithmetics. Okay. अच्छा, आप लोग जो है ना ज़रा बस खामोश होकर सुनते रहें. Now, in the third quadrant, I is negative and j is also negative. Okay, and in the fourth quadrant, I is positive and j is also positive. Okay. हर वक्त इसी चलाने पे डांट नहीं पड़ती बेटा, मैं ही बिल देता हूँ, मुझे क्यों डांट पड़ेगी. Okay, so let's see what is basically the application of this. So the first concept that we're going to learn, okay, the very first concept that we're going to learn is basically how to use velocity vector to find speed. Okay, so this is the first concept that we're going to learn. What's that? That is basically using velocity vector to find speed. Okay. How is the situation in Karachi? It's all right. I think it was a little messy in the morning, but it's all right now. Shouldn't j be negative? Yep, j should be negative in the fourth quadrant. Who said it's positive? Okay, now, so suppose that you have, first let's go over the concept and then we'll do some examples also. So when we're writing down velocity as a vector, so what we do is we basically break it down into horizontal and vertical movement. Okay, when we're writing down velocity as a vector, what is a vector? Vector is basically a breakdown of horizontal movement and vertical movement, right? So when we're writing down velocity as a vector, we write it like this: ai plus bj meter per second. Okay. Now using this, if you want to find out, let's say, the speed. Okay, using this, if let's say you want to find out the speed, what's the speed going to be equal to? The speed will be equal to square root of a square plus b square. Okay. And that brings me to a very important note. And the note is as follows: that speed is the magnitude of velocity vector. Okay. Permutation combination, inshallah, at 5 p.m. Okay, so speed is the velocity of, speed is the magnitude of velocity vector. So let's do some examples. Here we go. So the first example is, just a second. The velocity is equals to 3I plus 4J meter per second. Okay, find the speed. No, AS, not AdMaths. Okay, not, and it's not even recommended for AdMath students. Okay, it's S1, which is way more difficult than AdMaths. So I don't recommend AdMath students watch that stream. In fact, stay away from it. Okay, आप लोग depression में ही चले जाएंगे. So what's the speed equal to? Very simple. The speed will be equal to square root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. 3 squared plus 4 squared, which means the speed is equals to 5 meters per second. All right. Now, here, let's find out the speed once again. The speed will be equal to square root of 8 squared plus minus 6 squared. What's that equal to? That's equal to 10. Okay, you can work it out. So speed is equals to 10 meters per second. All right. Okay, now, that's pretty easy stuff, what we have done. Okay, but now the difficult stuff is about to start. Okay, and that is how to find velocity vector. Okay, so this is the second concept where we learn how to find out velocity vector. Okay, so basically we'll be given the speed and maybe the direction, and we have to find out the velocity vector. Okay, so finding velocity vector using what? Using speed and direction. Okay, now let's do an example. Here it is. Just a second. Yeah, I've already done series. Just a second यार, ये edit क्यों नहीं हो रहा? एक मिनट. चलो, I'll just type it. An object is traveling northeast, okay, at a speed of, now I'm not going to give you the speed, ठीक है, speed के आगे मैं ज़रा कुछ blank लगा देता हूँ, okay, and you have to find its velocity vector. Okay, an object is traveling northeast at a speed of, okay, now let's say the speed is 3 under root 2. Okay, 3 under root 2 meters per second. 3 under root 2 meters per second. And you have to find out its velocity vector. Okay, so now remember, velocity, there are two key ingredients that go into making a velocity vector. Okay, so think of velocity vector as a very simple cuisine. Okay, and there are two key ingredients. What are the key ingredients? One is the speed. Okay, so you put in the speed, and what's the other key ingredient that you put into making a velocity vector? The other key ingredient is basically the direction. Okay, so these two key ingredients, when mixed together, form a velocity vector. Okay, now what does the velocity vector look like? First, let's write that down. The velocity vector in the end looks like this: AI plus BJ meter per second. Okay, what's this? This is basically the end result. This is what we want. Now, how do we work this out? Let's have a look. First of all, what's northeast? Northeast means that exactly in between north and east. Okay, northeast does not mean that somewhere in between north and east. Northeast means exactly in between north and east. Acha, Ahmed, your answer is wrong. Okay, except, I mean, in the sense that the value may be correct, but if you leave it like that, if you don't simplify it, you won't get full marks. So here's north, all right, and here's east. here's west, and here's south. Northeast, remember, northeast means exactly in between north and east. So this is 45 degrees and this is 45 degrees. Now, what is the speed? Speed, remember, is equal to the magnitude of the velocity vector. Okay, so that means what we have to do is we have to break it down into A and B. Okay, what we are given is the speed. That means this is what we're given. We're given 3 under root 2 is basically the hypotenuse. So what we have to do is we have to make a 90-degree triangle out of it. Okay, so I'll do that on the side. So the object is heading in this direction. Okay, this is the direction in which the object is heading. And we have to break it down into horizontal and vertical components. So this is the horizontal component. Okay, I'll use the color blue for that, and this is the vertical component. Okay, let's make a nice and smooth 90-degree triangle out of it. Here we go. Okay, now, acha yaad rakho, A is the horizontal component. Okay, and B is the vertical component. All right, so we have broken this down into a 90-degree triangle. Now, what's the angle? The angle is 45 degrees. So let's write that down. This is 45 degrees. What's the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse is 3 under root 2. Now, the horizontal component is A. The vertical component is equal to B. Okay, first let's focus on the horizontal component. Okay, beta I'll announce on my Instagram. Okay, I'll most likely be streaming all the important topics, which I will announce on my Instagram. So first let's focus on A. A is the adjacent side. So for that we'll have to use cos. So cos 45 is equal to, yes, because speed is, okay, I think you joined late. So please watch the initial part of the stream where I explained that if you're given the velocity and you have to find out the speed, speed is basically equal to the magnitude of the velocity vector. All right, so cos 45 is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is 3 under root 2, cross multiply, and you will have the value of A, which is equal to 3. Just like that, let's find out B. Okay, so for B, what are we going to do? Since B is the opposite side, so sine 45 is equals to opposite, which is B, over hypotenuse, which is 3 under root 2. So that means B is also equal to 3. Now, I don't want you guys to make this a standard rule that it will always be the same for both. This is just a coincidence. Okay, the values that I've chosen are such that we're getting the same answer. But please don't make a standard rule for this. कि बस एक example में same आ रहा है, तो now you make a standard rule for yourself that horizontal and vertical component will always be the same. Okay, so don't make this a standard rule because that will not always be the case. All right, now that was one easy example. Let's do a slightly more complex example. Okay, let's do a slightly more complex example, and whatever questions that you guys have right now, कोई भी आपका what if है ज़हन में कि what if this, what if that, hold on to that. Okay, hold on to any what ifs that you have in your mind right now. All right, an object is traveling at a bearing of, sir, I minus j? No, they will both be positive. Why will they both be positive? They will both be positive because it's in the first quadrant. So I will be positive and j will also be positive. Okay, because they're both in the first quadrant. That's a good thing you pointed out, but they will both be positive because they're heading rightwards and upwards. Let's have a look at this example. In this example, you will notice something slightly different. An object is traveling at a bearing of 120 degrees at a speed of 10 meters per second. Now remember the two key ingredients that go into making the velocity vector. What are those key ingredients? You have the speed and the direction. Okay, and that direction could be the bearing, like for example here. Okay, so what are we going to do with this? Let's see. First of all, what's 120 degrees? So this is 90 degrees, this is 180, 120 will probably be somewhere over here. Okay, so this is what 120 degrees looks like. 120 degrees. Okay, now let's break this down in, let's make a 90-degree triangle out of it. Achha, by the way, this angle will be 30 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw this part and I'm going to make a 90-degree triangle out of it. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Let's draw a 90-degree triangle. So this is the speed, which by the way is the hypotenuse, that's equal to 10 meters per second. Now let's draw the horizontal component with A. You can draw it with any color that you like. Okay, I'm just using two different colors so that we can distinguish. And the vertical component I will draw using a slightly different color, which is blue. There you go. Okay, now let's make a nice 90-degree triangle here. There you go. Okay, now this is A heading towards the right, okay, and B, which is heading downwards. Now, one thing we can say for sure is that A will be positive. Keep that in mind. And what about B? Will B be positive? No. Because it's towards the right and it's downwards, that means B will be negative. So whatever B turns out to be in value, remember to put a negative sign with it because it's going down. Okay, now let's focus on A. We can draw a 90 angle between y-axis. Yeah, you can do that also. Okay. So A is the adjacent side. Okay, A is the adjacent side. So this angle, what's this angle equal to? This angle is equal to 30 degrees. So that means we will have to use cos to find out A. So let's use that. Cos 30 is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. What's that equal to? That's equal to 10. So 10 multiplied by cos 30, you will get 5 under root 3. Okay, 5 under root 3. Now let's focus on B. For B, we'll have to use sine. Sine 30 is equals to opposite, which is B, upon the hypotenuse, which is 10. So sine 30 is half. B is equals to 5, but remember, it's going to be minus 5. Okay, so what's the final answer? The final answer looks like this. 5 under root 3i minus 5j. Don't forget to close the bracket. Meters per second. ठीक है? अच्छा बेटा सुलेमान फजूल सवाल पूछना बंद करो. Focus on what we're doing. Okay? इसमें asymptotes. No, why would there be asymptotes here? You have asymptotes when you're making exponential graphs or something like that. अच्छा, let's do another question. Here it is. Okay. An object is traveling at a speed of 8 meters per second in the direction 6i plus 8j. Find its velocity vector. Yes, this is the Cartesian form. Okay, actually no, this is the ij form. We call it the ij form. Okay. Cartesian में normally, वैसे you can call this Cartesian, but we call this the ij form. Okay. Alright, an object is traveling at a speed of 8 meters per second in the given direction 6i plus 8j. Find its velocity vector. Okay, so here there's a formula that we have to use. Okay, in fact, there are two formulas that we have to use over here. Let's see what those are. So first of all, remember that one way to find out the velocity vector is this. Velocity vector is equal to speed times the unit vector of direction vector. ठीक है, ये एक formula है. Now, where does this formula come from? Now is not the time to go into that. I think I have a video on it, okay, or in the detailed video where I've done velocity vectors, I've explained it, but now is not the time to go into the detail. Achha, remember, what is a unit vector equal to? Unit vector is basically vector divided by its magnitude. Okay, so unit vector, remember, is equal to vector divided by its magnitude. Okay, now, how will I find out the velocity vector? Here's how I will find out the velocity vector. Speed, that's 8, multiplied by the unit vector of the direction vector. Now, what's unit vector? Unit vector will be equal to 6i plus 8j divided by its magnitude. What's the magnitude equal to? The magnitude will be equal to 6 squared plus 8 squared. So let's work it out. Velocity is equals to 8 times 6i plus 8j divided by 6 squared plus 8 squared. What's that equal to? That's equal to 10. Now, when you simplify, this is what you get. You get 4 upon 5 because you can simplify 8 and 10 if using the table of 2. 2 4s are, 2 5s are. So 4 upon 5 into 6i plus 8j. You can write it like that. If you want to multiply it, you can multiply. Also, it's up to you really. Okay, so this is another way to find out the vector using the speed and the direction. ठीक हो गया? अच्छा, अब एक काम करते हैं. Let's do some of those past paper questions where we have to find out the resultant. Okay, some really complex questions where we have to find out the resultant, and then we'll do the remaining concepts of velocity vectors. I said this topic honestly is not that difficult. I don't know why people make a big deal out of it. I mean, if you want to make a big deal about trigonometry. Trigonometry, no doubt, is difficult, but I don't see why people lose their mind over velocity vectors. अच्छा, एक सवाल आया था बड़ा अच्छा और अभी रिसेंट ही आया है. चलें आसान क्वेश्चन से स्टार्ट करते हैं. Here. So it's a 6-mark question. Let's see what it says. Trigonometry is easy. I'm glad you guys think trigonometry is easy. Yeah, Maria will do plenty of velocity vector questions. In fact, we'll probably do all of them because there aren't too many. But right now, let's focus on this. So it says vector q has magnitude 12 under root 5 and direction so on. So now notice we're not given the vector. Okay, but we're given the breakdown of the vector. We're given the magnitude and we're given the direction. So we'll use these together. We'll use these two pieces of information and we will then find out the actual vector. Okay, so let's solve this. This is a past paper question. I don't know which one this is, but it's definitely a past paper question. Okay, so first let's focus on vector q. Okay, now what do we know about vector q? We know that vector q has magnitude 12 under root 5 and we're given the direction in which it's heading. So that means if I want to find out the actual vector, I will take the magnitude, okay, multiplied by the unit vector of the direction vector. So that means 6i minus 3j divided by its magnitude. Now what would be its magnitude? Its magnitude would be square root of 6 squared plus minus 3 squared. Okay, so let's work this out. 12 under root 5 as it is into 6i minus 3j, let's keep that as it is for now, divided by square root of 6 squared plus 3 squared, so simply square root of 3 under root 5. Okay, now when you simplify this, so when you do 12 under root 5, divide by answer, so you get 4 times 6i minus 3j. What's that equal to? That's equal to 24i minus 12j. So this is basically what vector q is equal to. Okay, so let's write this on the side. So q is equals to 24i minus 12j. Okay. Now let's focus on r. So we will find out the vector r the exact same way. We will take its magnitude, okay, and then we will multiply it by the unit vector of the direction vector. So that would be minus 5i plus 5j divided by square root of 5 squared plus 5 squared. Basically minus 5 squared, but the minus becomes irrelevant anyway. Okay, so what does this become? Let's see what this becomes. So this will become 15 under root 2 will remain as it is into minus 5i plus 5j will also remain as it is divided by square root of 5 squared plus 5 squared. What's that equal to? That's equal to 5 under root 2. Now once again you can simplify. 15 under root 2 divided by answer, that's equal to 3. So this will become 3 times minus 5i plus 5j, which is equal to minus 15i plus 15j. ठीक है. अच्छा, अब we found both the vectors. We found vector q, we found vector r. Now the question is, what exactly are we supposed to do with it? Okay, we found out vector q, we found out vector r. Achha, just give me 1 minute, okay? Okay, sorry about that. All right, so we have vector q and we have vector r. ठीक हो गया. अच्छा. What are we supposed to do with it? We are basically supposed to find out the vector in the direction of q plus r. Okay, we're supposed to find out the vector in the direction of q plus r. So that means we are going to find out q plus r. Okay, so let's find out q plus r. And what's the, and sorry, we're supposed to find out the unit vector in the direction of q plus r. So let's find out q plus r. A good idea would be to now write it as column vector, because when written as column vector, it's easier to add them. So 24 and minus 12 plus minus 15 and 15. So what's 24 minus 15? 24 minus 15, that's equal to 9. And what's minus 12 plus 15? That's equal to 3. Okay, so there you go, 9 and 3. Now this is q plus r. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to find out the magnitude. So let's, while we're at it, let's also find out the magnitude of q plus r. That would be equal to square root of 9 squared plus 3 squared. ठीक हो गया? So 9 squared plus 3 squared, that's 81 plus 9, that's equal to 90. So that's 3 under root 10. So that's equal to 3 under root 10. So that means the end result would be 9 upon 3 under root 10, which will obviously simplify. Okay, we'll simplify this in a minute. And 3 over 3 under root 10. Okay, so this is the end result. Now, you can simplify this using your calculator, or you can simplify this some other way, however way you want. So 9 upon 3 under root 10, what's that equal to? That's equal to 3 root 10 upon 10. 3 under root 10 upon 10. Okay, and then if you do 3 upon 3 root 10, let's see what's that equal to. That's equal to root 10 upon 10. Root 10 upon 10. That's it. Job done. Acha, sir, thanks to you. Chala, I'm happy to help. Sir, did you teach at Wales College? Asking because I can see Wales Award in the background. But badi tez nazar hai aap logon ki. No, I did not teach at Wales College. I was invited for an event. That's where I got that from. Is it really that clear in the camera? Wow. Very smart. What are the marks required for distinction in advanced? But full marks. Okay. Hate to break it to you, but you need full marks. Okay. Not just full marks, you need full marks and then some. Why? You might think that how does that work? That you need full marks and then some? Because in math, in any math related subject, there will be dozens, if not hundreds, of people who are going to get full marks. But the thing is, if everybody's getting full marks, obviously not everybody's going to get distinction. So the question is, who takes home the distinction? So distinction per sort, then basically they have the next hurdle that you have to cross is that your paper has to be well presented, your working has to be systematic. So you have to cross this hurdle also after getting full marks. And that is when you end up with a distinction. Because if, let's say, there are 5 people who have ended up getting full marks, you can't have 5 distinctions, right? Otherwise, it's not a distinction anymore. It's just like an A star or an A grade. Okay, so here's another question. Let's see what this is. In this question, I is a unit vector due east and j is a unit vector due north. A cyclist rides at a speed of 4 meters per second on a bearing of 15 degrees. Write the velocity vector of the cyclist in the form of xi plus yj, where x and y are constants. Okay, let's sort this out. Binomial stream. Binomial stream. Did I do a binomial stream? I think I did. I'm not too sure, but I think I did. Khair. So we have a cyclist who is riding at a speed of 4 meters per second, and what's the bearing? The bearing is 15 degrees. Okay, so it's a 2-mark question, but still there's a decent amount of working that's involved. So first of all, let's see what quadrant is the cyclist in. Yeah, this is definitely a very nice question. This entire paper, I think this is 22. Yeah, it's May, June 2022, right after COVID. This entire paper was actually a very difficult paper, and it had one of the lowest thresholds also. Ek to threshold was low right after COVID, because I guess they were going easy on students. And then it was even lower because this paper was quite difficult. Okay, so this is 75 degrees. All right, now let's break this down into horizontal and vertical components. Since we don't have a lot of space, let's do it here only, and let's do it using a single color. So this is the horizontal component, which is A, and this is the vertical component, which we're gonna call B. Okay. Now, what is the hypotenuse? Remember, the hypotenuse is basically the magnitude of the velocity, which is basically equal to what? Which is basically equal to speed. So I'm going to drag this 15 here, and I'm going to write this 4 meters per second here. Okay, so what's A? A is basically the adjacent side, which we can find by using cos. So cos 75 is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So A is equals to, let's work it out, cos 75 times 4. Cos 75 times 4, that's equal to, अच्छा क्वेश्चन ने x and y का कुछ खास बताया नहीं कि किस फॉर्म में होना चाहिए, तो चलो हम इसको एग्जैक्ट फॉर्म में लिख लेते हैं. Okay, so cos 75, I'm looking at a value, let's multiply it by 4, so that's equal to under root 6 minus under root 2, that's what A is equal to. Alright, use your calculator to get the exact value. Under root 6 minus under root 2. Now, just the same way, let's find out B. So B would be equal to not cos. In fact, we'll have to use sine. So sine 75 is equals to opposite, which is B, over hypotenuse, which is 4. Let's see if we can get the exact value of B also the same way. So sine 75 multiplied by 4. Yep, we do. So that's equal to under root 6 plus under root 2. Okay, so what's the velocity equal to? This is what the velocity looks like. It's root 6 minus under root 2, that's the I component. Okay, plus, अब technology का ज़रा फ़ायदा उठाते हैं. Let's write this as it is. Okay, make a bracket and J. There you go. Yeah, I'm using good notes. So there you go. 2, I wouldn't say easy marks, but lengthy. But in fact, I will say easy, but it's definitely lengthy. And you have to do it systematically. Okay, please don't do it in a haphazard manner. if a question is difficult and you do it in a haphazard manner, you end up making it even more difficult for yourself, and you don't even feel that confident. Okay, when you're done, you don't feel that confident either. All right, now part B. अब सारे पैसे जो है ना basically इस question के. Okay, this is, I think, one of a kind question, and I think it's not that difficult, but because of the overall pressure, a lot of students mess this question. Tan, why would you want to use tan? You could use tan, considering that we have the adjacent side, you could use tan, but it's best to use the original piece of information. So if I make a mistake and I redo, yeah, of course, cross it out, don't overwrite it, cross it out and do it again if you have enough space available under the same part. If not, then do it on the blank page that you're given. You're welcome, Ahmed, appreciate it. All right, now let's focus on this question. Now here there are two vectors. A vector of magnitude 6 on a bearing of 300. Okay, so that's one vector is added to a vector of magnitude 2 on a bearing of 230 degrees to give a vector v. Okay, so there are two vectors. Let's call one, in fact, a नहीं बोलते, एक को p बोल देते हैं, एक को q बोल देते हैं. Okay, and you add these two vectors to get vector v, and you have to find out the magnitude and the bearing of v. Okay, so the amount of space that you're given, honestly, for this question is not a lot. So I mean, it's just enough. It's just enough if you utilize it very, very efficiently. So first, let's talk about vector p. So vector p has magnitude 6 and is on a bearing of 300 degrees. So what will that look like? Let's have a look. So this is north, this is east, bearing is 90 degrees, south bearing is 180 degrees, west bearing is 270 degrees. So here is 300 degrees. Okay, remember bearing is measured from the north in a clockwise direction. Okay, so it's always measured from the north in a clockwise direction. So here is 300 degrees. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब ये तो चलो 300 degrees है. What kind of a triangle are we looking at? We're looking at a 90-degree triangle. Here we go. Where the x component will be negative, remember, and the y component will be positive. Okay, now the question is, what will this angle be equal to? This angle will be equal to 30 degrees. Why will this angle be equal to 30 degrees? Because up until here it's 270, this is 300, so that means this angle is 30 more than 270. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, let's call this A, let's call this B. Now remember, A is heading towards the left, B is heading upwards, so A will be negative. So how will I figure out A? For A, we will have to use cos. So that means cos 30, okay, cos 30 is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. And what's the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse, the magnitude that we're given is 6. So that's equal to, now A is equals to what? A is equals to 3 under root 3. 3 under root 3. But remember, it will be minus. This will be minus. So wasn't this topic removed from the syllabus? बेटा खुदा का खौफ करो, कुछ दिन में पेपर है आपका, कैसी आप बहकी बहकी बातें कर रही हैं? ये टॉपिक किसने बोल दिया सिलेबस से निकल गया? Relative velocity was removed from the syllabus. Well, relative velocity was removed from the syllabus, not velocity vectors. चलें, शुक्र है आपको देर आई दुरुस्त आई. So sine 30 is equals to opposite over hypotenuse. So sine 30 is half, so b is equals to what? B is equals to 3. Now this vector that we're calling p, we'll park this on the side, we'll come back to it. So p is equals to minus 3 under root 3. Okay, over, not over, but the other component is 3. There you go. Okay, so p को अभी हमने साइड पे पार्क कर दिया, अभी इस पे वापस आते हैं. पहले ज़रा q निकाल लेते हैं. So what do we know about vector q? Velocity only by calculus. Beta, this is part of the syllabus. Okay, this is part of the syllabus. I mean, you can open the syllabus and see for yourself. Okay, what you're saying, velocity by calculus, that's kinematics, that is also part of the syllabus, but this is also part of the syllabus. Okay, abhi to test हुआ है, February March में test भी हुआ है. Why negative? Okay, good question. Why is it negative? Because it's going towards the left. Okay, that's why it's negative. A lot of people will forget this. The fact that it's going towards the left means that it's negative. So a good idea would be, here's a suggestion. A good idea would be that you put a minus sign with A from the get-go, meaning that you put the minus sign from the beginning. Okay. Now let's talk about the other vector, which we're calling q. Q is on a bearing of 230 degrees and the magnitude is 2. So first let's see which quadrant will 230 degrees take us in, and that's how we will decide what the angle is and what will be the sine of A and B. So this is 0, this is 90, this is 180, this is 270. So somewhere over here will be 230 degrees. Okay. Answer kar dein. Thero. First let me do this, then I'll take your question. Achha. So this is the x component, meaning the I component, and this is the j component. Achha, what can you guys tell me about the sine of A and the sine of B? Achha. Also, while you guys are doing that, remember this is on a bearing of 230 degrees. Okay, this is a bearing of 230 degrees, which means this angle right here will actually be equal to 40 degrees. Both negative, very good. Acha, what's that, sir? If I do my workout with pencil due to lack of space? No, please don't do anything. But instructions padho na, ye kya fazul sawal hai? Just read the instructions, you'll find the answer to your question written in the instructions. Okay? So, the magnitude is 2. Let's use cos to find out the adjacent side once again. So, cos 40 this time is equals to adjacent. Now they will both be negative, so might as well put a minus sign with A immediately over the hypotenuse, which is 2. So that means A is equals to minus 2 cos 40. Theek ho gaya? Achha, the same way, let's find out B. So for B, we'll have to use sine. Sine 40 is equals to opposite, which is B, over hypotenuse, which is 2. Now B will be negative, so that means B is equals to minus 2 sine 40. Now did you guys notice something? Notice that I did not work this out. I did not simplify it. Okay, reason why I did not simplify it is because I did not take the decimal values because this is not the final answer. We're supposed to add them, then we're supposed to calculate the bearing, then we're supposed to calculate the magnitude. So we will take out the final answer later. Okay, we'll bring it in decimals later on. And even then, if you bring it in decimal, we'll bring it at least correct to 5 significant figures. Okay, but when we get to the final answer, we'll round it off correct to 3 significant figures. And angle, remember, given correct to 1 decimal place. Okay, now let's add the two vectors. We have both the vectors, let's add them up. So here's one vector. Okay, in this vector, what are we adding? We're adding this and we're adding this. ठीक है, इन दो को हम add कर रहे हैं. Now when we add them, what do we get? Here's what we get. We get minus 3 under root 3 minus 2 cos 40, and this remains the same. Okay, so once again, I'm not going to write down the decimal version of it because I don't want to do something known as premature approximation. Okay, so this is what we get. बेटा अभी मैंने इस चीज़ का जवाब दिया. Why I'm keeping it in terms of sine and cos. Okay, I've already answered that. So please pay attention. Now remember, this is the A component and this is the B component. Okay, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to find out the magnitude and the bearing. So now let's find out the magnitude. Okay, so and this, by the way, is equal to vector V. Okay, vector V ka magnitude nikalte hain. How will I find out the magnitude? So in order to find out the magnitude, what you can do is you can take the decimal value, but take the decimal value correct to at least 5 significant figures. Okay, so it's going to be difficult for me to type this entire thing into the calculator, or actually not that difficult. Not that difficult. I'll show you guys how to do that, because I want to save myself from premature approximation. Okay, and I want my calculator to do all the hard work, not me. So basically, here's what we're going to do. We know that if you want the magnitude, you'll have to take minus 3 under root 3 minus 2 cos 40, the whole thing squared. Okay, and in it, we need to add what? I need to add 3 minus 2 sine 40, the whole thing squared. Okay? Okay, now let's do this using a calculator. So minus 3 under root 3 minus 2 cos 40, close the bracket again, squared plus, open a bracket, 3 minus 2 sine 40, close one bracket, that's for the angle, close another bracket, that's for the entire, that's for the initial bracket, the whole thing squared. And there you go, we have the magnitude, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 6.94. So that means the magnitude of V is equals to 6.94 units. Achha, here's the question. How will I find out the bearing? So in order to find out the bearing, we need to see which one's positive, which one's negative. Okay, we need to find out कि कौन सी value positive है, कौन सी value negative है. तो अब हमें पता है क्या करना पड़ेगा. Now we will have to find out the approximate decimal value of each. So minus 3 under root 3 minus 2 cos 40. Let's find out the decimal value of this. So this is equal to minus 6.728. Okay, and then let's find out the decimal value of 3 minus 2 sine 40. 3 minus 2 sine 40. Make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. So 1.7144. Okay, so what kind of a vector are we looking at? We're looking at a vector which is heading in this direction because x is negative and y is positive. This is the direction in which the vector is heading. Okay, and this is the bearing that we want. Now, before I can find out the bearing, I need to find out what this angle is. And in order to find out this angle, we'll have to use these lengths, 6.728 with the minus sign, but obviously we're not going to use the minus sign when calculating angle, and 1.7144. Here also, obviously, we're not going to use the this is already positive, so we don't have to worry about the minus sign. So what I'll do is, first let's calculate this angle, which I'm going to call alpha. How will I calculate this angle? This angle can be worked out by using tan. So tan alpha is equals to adjacent, which is 6.728 over the hypotenuse. Opposite upon adjacent. Okay, so opposite upon adjacent. So opposite is 1.7144. Okay, so let's see what do we get. Tan inverse of 1.7144 divided by 6.728. Let's close the bracket. What do we get? We get 14.295. Because this is not final answer, I'm going to take this correct to 2 decimal places. So 296, 3 kar lete hain, chalo. Achha, remember, we're supposed to give the bearing. How will I give the bearing? The bearing would be equal to 270 plus alpha. Why 270 plus alpha? In case anyone's wondering. Up until here, it will be 270, then another alpha, which we just worked out. So इसी में ही हम 270 add कर लेते हैं. So 270 plus alpha is equals to what? 284.295. And remember, any angle is given correct to 1 decimal place. So 284.3 degrees is the final answer. मजा आया? 6.94 on a bearing of अच्छा, एक हैबिट बना लें आप लोग कि अपना जो फाइनल आंसर है ना उसको एक बॉक्स में डाल दें सो दैट इट्स ईजी फॉर द एग्जामिनर टू आइडेंटिफाई. अच्छा था ना? I loved, I mean, when this question came, I was very happy to see this question because इसमें आपके कोर कॉन्सेप्ट्स टेस्ट हो रहे हैं. इसमें कोई शॉर्टकट नहीं चलेगा. वो जो बच्चे होते हैं ना, सर कोई शॉर्टकट बता दें, कोई ट्रिक बता दें, कोई फॉर्मूला बता दें, उनकी यहाँ जो है ना वो समझ तो गए होंगे आप लोग. S1 का मॉक कल है. कल आई एम टेकिंग S1 मॉक एंड आई एम टेकिंग एडमैथ्स मॉक एज वेल इंशाल्लाह. 1 घंटा गुजर भी गया. वाह यार. ओके, चलें. अब लेट्स रिज्यूम द कॉन्सेप्ट कवरेज. ओके, कल एडमैथ्स का नॉन कैलकुलेटर मॉक है. ठीक है, आप लोगों को नॉन कैलकुलेटर प्रैक्टिस मटेरियल नहीं मिल रहा होगा ना, तो मैंने सोचा लेट्स टेक नॉन कैलकुलेटर मॉक्स ऑनलाइन सो दैट यू गाइस कैन प्रैक्टिस फॉर इट. बेटा अगर आपने लेट ज्वाइन किया है तो आप एक आइडिया दे रहा हूँ आपको, आइंदा भी काम आएगा. आप स्ट्रीम को थोड़ा आगे पीछे कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, तो बजाय इसके हम पूरी सब लोगों को हम स्लो डाउन करें, आप थोड़ा स्ट्रीम को आगे पीछे कर लें. सो स्पीड इज इक्वल्स टू व्हाट? स्पीड इज इक्वल्स टू, रिमेंबर, डिस्टेंस अपॉन टाइम. Okay, speed is equals to distance upon time. Now, अच्छा एक चीज़ याद रखें, how we give the distance and how we give the displacement. ठीक है, दोनों में फ़र्क है. Displacement, because it's a vector quantity, it's given as a vector. Distance, because it's a scalar quantity, it's given as a value. Okay, so remember that. So basically, here's how this works. Now, in this, we have displacement. Okay, and here we have distance. ठीक हो गया? So if displacement is equals to AI plus BJ meter, so what would be the distance equal to? The distance would be equal to square root of A square plus B square. ठीक है, अभी इसकी लॉजिक में जाने का टाइम नहीं है, although इसकी लॉजिक काफ़ी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड सी है कि displacement is basically the horizontal and vertical breakdown, whereas distance is basically straight line distance from the starting point. Okay. Now, also, just like that, we have velocity and speed. ठीक है, जो कि हम already देख चुके हैं. That if you want to give velocity, you break it down into horizontal and vertical movement. Okay, whereas if you want to give speed, you simply take the magnitude of the velocity vector. Okay. All right. So O level P2 4024 के kinematics करवा 16th में को पेपर है. बेटा P2 तो हो गया है, आप किस दुनिया में हैं? All right. Now, let's suppose you have AB, which is equal to 12I plus 5J meters. ठीक है. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to find out the distance. Okay, you're supposed to find out the distance from AB. So the question is find distance AB. कैसे निकालेंगे? Now first, let's try and understand what 12I plus 5J mean. It basically means that if you want to go from point A to point B, you will have to move 12 units towards the right. Okay, and you will have to move 5 units up. Okay, so that way you go from A to B, which means that the resultant would be equal to 13. 12 and 5, and the resultant is equal to 13. ठीक हो गया? Okay. अच्छा, कैसे हुआ 13? In case anyone's wondering, AB will simply be equal to square root of 12 squared plus 5 squared. Okay, I really hope nobody's wondering though, but it will be equal to 12 squared plus 5 squared, which means AB is equals to 13 meters. All right. Now, let's spice things up a little. Now, suppose that you have AB, okay, which is equal to 32I minus 24J meters. Okay, and let's suppose the question says, okay, time taken to go, if it lacks y component, if it lacks y component, then distance and displacement will be the same. You're right. Okay, the method remains the same. It's just that if, let's say, you're supposed to find out the distance between 2 points that are horizontal, so even if you use the distance formula, you get the same answer, whereas you can simply find out the distance by subtracting the x coordinates. So let's say we're given AB is 32I minus 24J, okay? And let's say the question says, okay, time taken to go from A to B is 4 seconds. Okay, let's suppose. And then let's say the question says, okay, find velocity. So the question says, find one part, velocity, okay, and part 2, speed. Walaikum assalam. So what's velocity equal to? So for velocity, we have a different formula. Remember, velocity is equals to displacement over time. Okay, So velocity is equals to displacement upon time. Okay, and remember displacement is given in vector form. Okay, just like velocity is given in vector form. And distance is basically nothing but simply a value which has a magnitude. That's it. So what will be the velocity equal to? Velocity will be equal to displacement upon time, as I just explained, that V velocity is equal to displacement upon time. Displacement upon time. Okay, now what's the displacement? The displacement is 32I minus 24j. And what are we going to do with this? We're going to divide it by time. What's that equal to? That's equal to 4. Can we simplify this? Yes, we can. 32 upon 4 is equals to 8. So 8I minus 6j meters per second. Okay, there you go. Now, what about the speed? Now, there are two ways that we can find out speed. Okay, and I'm going to show you both ways. One is that you can calculate the magnitude of the velocity vector. Okay, so one way that you can find out the speed is that you can calculate the magnitude of velocity. Okay, so what will be the magnitude of velocity? The magnitude of velocity will be equal to square root of 8 squared plus 10 squared. 8 squared plus 6 squared, which will be equal to 10. So speed is equals to 10 meters per second. Okay, the other way is there's another method that is basically distance upon time. Okay, and you will notice that you will get the exact same answer. Speed is equals to distance upon time. Now, how will you find out the distance? The distance between A to B would be square root of 32 squared plus minus 24 squared divided by the time. Okay, now when you work this out, you will notice that you get the exact same answer. I'm not going to work it out for you. You guys can work it out yourself. So you get basically the exact same thing. Okay, so irrespective of how you do it, you get the exact same answer. ठीक हो गया? Sir, आप कभी Zenomatics? जी, बिल्कुल. I've met Sir Zain. When he had this 100K subscribers event, so he invited us. That's when I met him. Okay, now, अब चलते हैं थोड़ा आगे. So, the formula that I'm about to write down right now is perhaps the most important formula. Okay? Once again, we're not going to go into where the formula comes from, because we don't have the time for it. We'll just write it down and that's good enough. So displacement of an moving object displacement of an object. So inshallah, let's hope this session. If not this session, then later on. Displacement of an object moving at a constant velocity. Okay, now what's the formula for it? The formula for this is equal to R is equals to A plus V T. ठीक है, ये formula हो सकता है आप लोगों ने देखा हो, ठीक है? But it's a very important formula. What's R equal to? R is basically the displacement after t hours. अच्छा, थोड़ा सा हम देख लेते हैं कि formula कहाँ से आता है. I think आप लोगों को थोड़ी help ही हो जाएगी. This is displacement after t hours. Okay, what's A? A is basically the position vector of starting point. Okay, A is the position vector of starting point. ठीक हो गया? अच्छा, and then finally, इसको ना I think मैं horizontally लिख लेता हूँ. That's better. What is T? T is basically time. Okay, so what's T? T is basically time, and V is the velocity vector. Okay, so V is the velocity vector. This is what the velocity vector will look like. AB. Okay, and what's T? T is basically time. ठीक हो गया? Okay, now. So where does this come from? थोड़ा सा देख लेते हैं हम. ठीक है? थोड़ा सा. So in order to understand this, we will have to use a graph paper. Yeah, let's use this. Okay. So we're basically looking where this formula comes from. Now, let's suppose so let's say this is O. Okay, now let's suppose the object is here. Okay, and what's this? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Okay, this is A. And from here, the object is traveling at a velocity of minus, yeah. So from here, the object is traveling at a certain velocity. Okay, and what's that velocity? That velocity is equals to minus 1 plus 3. Minus 1i plus 3j meters per second. Okay? And the object is starting from A. So that means abhi time, now at this point, no time has passed. Okay, so t is equals to 0. So where will the object be if no time passes at t0? At t equals to 0, where will the object be, or what will be the position vector of the object? This is what the position vector of the object will be. The position vector will be basically vector A. Why? Because A is the starting point. Okay, A is the starting point. And what's the starting point? The starting point is 5, 2. Okay. But I've already answered that question. Okay, so I think you're just spamming now. Okay, now what happens if 1 second passes? At t is equals to 1. So at t equals to 1, what will happen is, from the starting point, which is 5, 2, the object will move in the direction that it's traveling, and because it's meters per second, so it will move 1 unit towards the left and 3 units upwards. So that means I will add the velocity vector. Okay, so this is what we will get. Now what happens at time t is equals to 2? At t is equals to 2, once again, we'll have to consider the point from where it's starting, that's 5, 2. And in 2 seconds, what will happen is the object will move, basically this movement will double. Because every second it's moving 1 unit towards the left and 3 units up. So in 2 seconds, it will move 2 units towards the left and 3, 4, 5, 6 units up. So that means the same thing will happen twice. 1 unit towards the left, 3 units up, then also 1 unit towards the left, 3 units up. That means at time 2 seconds, it will move minus 1, 3 multiplied by 2. So we'll have to multiply this by 2. Okay? Or you can multiply it by 2 before, you can multiply it by 2 after. That really doesn't matter. I prefer writing it before this. What happens at time t is equals to 3? Once again, starting point 5, 2, and in it we will add the velocity vector times 3. Why? Because in 3 seconds the movement will be tripled. So we'll multiply the velocity vector by 3. There you go. So इसको अगर हम generalize कर लें, at t is equals to t, what will it look like? So the general rule is the point from where it's starting, so that's 5, 2, plus t multiplied by the velocity vector, which is minus 1, 3. There you go. This is basically from where this formula comes from. That is r is equals to a plus v times t. अच्छा, अब आपकी मर्जी है whether you write t after or before. Sorry, I said I prefer before, but actually I prefer after. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so this is from where it comes. Now you don't have to know the background of this, but it just helps in understanding the concept better. Achha, also remember one thing. Rule number 1. If you're supposed to find out the position vector, or displacement after t hours, what's that equal to? That's equal to R equals to A plus V times T. Okay? Rule number 2. If you are supposed to find out the distance traveled, okay, if you're supposed to find out the distance traveled or the distance from O, okay, after T hours. So in that case, what we'll do is we will take the magnitude of the position vector. The magnitude of position vectors. Okay, now, so let's do some questions. And you know what, let's jump straight to some past paper questions. So I have here a past paper question. It's from May-June 2019. Tero, let me just open up the past paper question that I'm talking about. So there's a practice paper as well. Chalo, we'll do that also. Sir, क्या आप बच्चों को iPad recommend करते हैं course लेने के बजाय? Yeah, I mean, if you are disciplined and if you think that you will not get distracted, then I do recommend it. It's actually a great investment. You'll have all your books in one place. You'll have all your material in one place. So I definitely recommend it. So why the magnitude of the position vector? Because if let's say that you want to find out the distance after 1 second, the distance from O. So what will you have to do? You will have to take the magnitude of the position vector. So if the object is here, how will you find out this distance? You will have to take the magnitude of the position vector. That's why. Okay. Now let's solve this question. A particle P is moving with a velocity of 20 meters per second in the same direction as 3, 4. Find the velocity vector of P. Okay, so how will we find out the velocity vector? We will take 20 and we'll multiply 20 by the unit vector of the direction. So iska jo magnitude hoga wo 5 hoga, in case you're wondering. So 5 ones are, 5 fours are, 4 times 3 is equals to 12. So 12i plus 16j, which we will write as 12, 16. There you go. Okay, now at t is equals to 0, P has position vector relative to a fixed point O. Write down the position vector of P after t seconds. So position vector of P after t seconds will be equal to R is equals to the starting point, the point from where it's starting, plus the velocity at which it's moving, that's 12 and 16, and we will multiply this by t because we want the position vector after t seconds. There you go. Easy marks. Okay, and what's this equal to? This is basically equal to OP. Since we're talking about the position vector of P, that's basically equal to OP. A particle Q has position vectors 17, 18 relative to O at time t equals to 0 seconds and has velocity vector 8, 12. Given that P and Q collide. Okay, so now what happens when two collide, when two objects collide? First of all, let's write down the position vector of Q after t seconds. So the point from where it's starting, 17, 18, plus the velocity at which it's moving, that's 8 and 12. Okay. And what's that equal to, and what are we going to multiply it with? We're going to multiply it by t. IJ form mein, dekho, my suggestion is that if it's not given to you in IJ form, then don't write it in IJ form. If it's given to you in a certain form, write it in that form only. Okay, that's what I would recommend. Waise to if the question is silent, honestly, you can write it however way you want. But if the question has given it to you in a certain form, it's best that you write it in that form. Acha, ab ek cheez yaad rakho, when two objects collide, okay, so I'll add a note over here, that when two objects collide, what we do is we equate their position vector. Okay, when does collision happen? Collision happens when two objects happen to be at the same place at the same time, right? And if two objects are in the same place at the same time, that means at a certain time, their position vector is equal. Okay, so an important note. When two objects collide, we equate their position vector. So OQ and OP are colliding, so that means at some point OP will be equal to OQ. That is why the collision occurs. So here's OP. Okay, so here it is. Oops. And this is equal to what? This is equal to this. Okay, let's write this nicely. 1 plus 12t is equals to 17 plus 8t. All right. And then 2 plus 16t is equals to 18 plus 12t. There you go. Okay, now let's get all the t's on one side. Let's get all the constants on one side. So if you get all the t's on one side, that would be 4t is equals to, so you don't have to use both of them, just use one of them. Okay, if you have to show that they're colliding, then you will have to use both of them, show that you're getting the same value of t. But if you just have to find out, or if you have to find out the time when they're colliding, then you can just use any one of the two. So 4t is equals to 16, which means t is equals to 4. So that means after 4 hours, they collide. 4 hours, no, sorry, 4 seconds. Achha, also, that's not the end of the story. We're also supposed to find out the position vector of the point of collision. So to find out the position vector of the point of collision, take this value of t, plug it in any vector that you like. You can plug it in OP, you can plug it in OQ. Why is that? Because they're colliding. The position vector at t is equals to 4 must be the same. So I'm going to plug it in OP for no particular reason, just because p comes first in the alphabetic order. That's the only reason. So 1 plus 12 times 4. Okay, and 2 plus 16 times 4. So what's that equal to? OP is equals to 49. And 16 times 4, that's 64. 64 plus 2, that's equal to 66. That's it. Job done. ठीक हो गया? So now I'll give you guys a question to solve now. This will be from February. Abhi, somebody asked me a question to solve. If you can repeat what that question was, I'll include that also. क्योंकि इसके इतने ज़्यादा questions हैं नहीं. चलें ये सॉल्व करें मैं ज़रा 5 मिनट में आया ठीक है I'll give you guys okay I'm not timing you guys just solve this question I'll be back on my desk in about 5 minutes Okay, क्या हालात हैं? Answer to the first part. Minus 40 plus 42, that's correct. Good job. Yeah, so the Dropbox link is empty. I'll upload this file. Okay, because I hadn't compiled all the past papers before the stream. I'll do it after. I'll basically upload this PDF once we're done. So answer to the first part would be, so once again, we're going to use the speed. We're going to multiply it by the unit vector of the direction vector. So that's equal to minus 40i plus 42j. Okay, given that A is initially at the point so and so, write down the position vector of A at time t. So OA is equals to 5 and minus 3. Okay, so that's the point from where it's starting, plus the velocity at which it's traveling. So basically it's displacement every second. And since we're talking about time t, so we're going to multiply it by t. A particle B starts to move. Okay, so what are we given? We're given OB. Okay, we're given OB. What's that equal to? That's equal to minus 35t plus 4 and 44t minus 2. Now we're supposed to find out AB. How can you find out AB? AB basically means OB minus OA. That's it. That's what AB means. Okay, so OB we already have. That's right here. Okay, from this we're going to subtract OA. So let's write OA nicely. So that's going to be 5 minus 40t. Okay, and it's going to be minus 3 plus 42t. There you go. Now when you, upon simplifying, I'll just give you the final answer. It's going to be 5t minus 1. You can't see what I'm writing? Okay, let me refresh it. Just a second. Yeah, you guys are right. Probably can't see what I'm writing. ठहरो. There you go. So AB is equals to OB minus OA. ठीक हो गया? Now when you simplify minus 35t minus minus, so that's going to be plus, so it's going to be 5t. 4 minus 5, that's minus 1. Okay, 44 minus 42, that's 2t. Minus 2 minus minus 3, that's minus 2 plus 3, so that's 2t plus 1. There you go. That's it. That's your answer. Okay. Hence find AB. That means we're supposed to find out the distance. Now remember, what is distance equal to? Distance is basically equal to the magnitude of the vector. So that's what we're going to do. We have the vector, okay, and we're going to take its magnitude. So when you take its magnitude, here's what you get. So it's going to be square root of, okay, कुछ ज़्यादा ही बड़ी square root बन गई. So square root of 5t minus 1 the whole thing squared plus 2t plus 1 the whole thing squared. Okay, so 5t minus 1 the whole thing squared plus 2t plus 1 the whole thing squared. Okay, so you have to simplify this. Let's see what you get. You get 25t squared minus 10t plus 1. Don't forget to use the identity. Plus 4t square plus 4t plus 1. Don't forget that all this is inside the square root. Lag? Really? Is there a lag? 25 plus 4, that's 29. 29t square. Okay, minus 10 plus 4, so that's minus 6t plus 2. Okay, I did explain, yes, the link is empty. Once I'm done with the stream, then I will upload this. Okay. So then the question says, find the value of t when the distance AB is equals to root 6. So we were told what the distance AB is equals to. Now we're told that AB is equal to what? AB is equals to under root of 6. So we equate the distance. That's, they're both equal. And walaikum assalam. So let's work this out. 29t square minus 6t minus 2 minus 6, so that's minus 8 equals to 0. Solve this like you would solve a quadratic equation. Okay? I don't think you can do middle term breaking, so you'll have to do, in fact, yeah, you can't do middle term breaking. The fact that it says give your answer correct to 2 decimal places, that means you have to use the quadratic formula. So t is equals to minus b, that means minus minus 6 plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, that means minus 6 squared minus 4 into 29 into minus 8 divided by 2a, that means 2 times 29. Okay, then you can use the calculator and write the final answer, which will be equal to what? Which will be equal to 0.49. पेपर तो हो नहीं गया मैथ्स का बेटा, ये वही लोग हैं जो इंस्ट्रक्शंस नहीं पढ़ते, ठीक है, जवाब मत देना इनको. So shouldn't be minus 4 at the end. Oh yeah, minus 4. You're right. Minus 4. Yep, minus 4. That's correct. Okay, let's do another question. हाँ बेटा, ठीक कर लिया मैंने, गलती हो गई. I fixed it now. Okay, let me find another question. What is my height? I don't know, but I haven't measured. चलें एक और सवाल निकालते हैं. Let's do that and we'll call it a day after that. एक सेकंड, मैं ज़रा एक सवाल ढूंढूँ आप लोगों का. काफ़ी नहीं है? काफ़ी है आपके लिए, तो आप चले जाएं. You can download the notes from my website, mathleadbysar.com. Notes bhi hain. There are in fact some practice worksheets also, some non-calculator practice worksheets that I've uploaded. You guys can download it from there. Okay, so I have another question for you guys. This will be the last question. इसके बाद आप लोग जा सकते हैं. So that's 4037, Winter 13, QP 23. Here. Sir, don't you think you've increased difficulty level of hard math by PIV? I think it fluctuates. It's not consistent. In fact, in some cases, I would say it has gone down. But I wouldn't say that they have increased it altogether. कई जगहों पे कम भी किया है. सर पेपर्स कैंसिल तो नहीं होंगे बेटा, मुझे क्या पता. हालात तो कुछ ऐसे ही लोग बता रहे हैं, बट आई कांट से एनीथिंग. Okay, sir, please resume streams for O level. Chale. No, relative velocity is something else. Relative velocity is something that has been removed from the syllabus. So please make a note of that. ठीक हो गया? Sir, all the exams so far were so easy. I am concerned what's going on with Cambridge. Well, if the exam is easy, then of course expect the threshold to be on the higher side. What to expect in P1? I've made a video on it. Okay, I've made a video on it. Topics that you can expect in P1. There's definitely quadratics. There's polynomials. There is logs. Okay, not exponential equations, but simplification and all that stuff. There is, just watch the video. Anyway, are we done with this? Write down the position vector of the boards A and B after T hours. So OA, A is starting from the origin. Okay, so that means the position vector of A after T hours would simply be 2, 4 times T. Then OB is not starting from the origin. In fact, it's starting from a point which has position vector 21 and 22. Okay, plus the velocity vector, which is 5 and 3, and we'll multiply this by T. There you go. Show that A and B are 25 kilometers apart when T is equals to 2. Okay, so first of all, what we can do is this. We can find out AB. Okay, यहाँ आप ये भी कर सकते हैं. There are many ways to go about this. Let's actually first find out vector AB. Okay, so OB minus OA. That means minus 21 plus 5T. Okay, and 22 plus 3T. Yes, you're right. I did say that. Okay, so it's best that you write it in that form. So 2I plus 4J times T and minus 21 plus 5I times T. Sorry, T times I, and 22 plus 3T times J. You're right. Okay. So this minus 2T and 4T. Okay, so when we work this out, what do we get? We get 21 minus 7T, and we get 22 minus T. Yeah. Minus 21 minus 7T and 22 minus T. Now, what's the value of T? T is given as 2. So if T is given as 2, that means minus 21 minus 7 times 2, that's equal to minus 35. Okay, so we are basically finding out the vector AB, and then we'll take its magnitude to find out the distance. And then 22 minus 2, what's that equal to? That's equal to 20. Okay, so if I take its magnitude, sorry, it's going to be minus 21 plus 3T. Sorry. So this will be equal to minus 21 plus 6, so that's minus 15. Yeah. Okay, now let's find out the magnitude of AB and show that it is in fact equal to 25. So that would be equal to 15 squared minus 15 whole squared plus 20 squared. Let's see what's that equal to. 225 plus 400. Take the square root of it. That is in fact equal to 25. So that means the magnitude of AB is equals to 25. There you go. Okay, find the length of time for which A and B are less than 25 kilometers apart. Okay, so we know what vector AB looks like. Okay, so vector AB looks like this. This is what vector AB is. And this will turn into a quadratic inequality. Why? Because we want to find out for how long are the two vectors less than 25 kilometers apart. Okay, for how long are the two vectors less than 25 kilometers apart. Okay, and we're supposed to find out the length of time. So we'll have to use identities. 21 plus 3t, the whole thing squared, plus 22 minus t, the whole thing squared, inside the square root is equal to what? Is equal to 25. Is equal to less than 25. Okay, so let's solve this. So 21 squared, that's equal to 441, minus 21 into 3 into 2, that's equal to 126t, plus 9t square. And also don't forget that we'll have to square both sides in order to get rid of the square root. Okay, plus 22 squared, that's equal to 484. So 484, 22 times 2, that's minus 44 t, plus t square is less than 625. So 9t square plus t square, that's equal to 10t square, minus 126 minus 44, that's equal to minus 170t. So this and this cancels. I mean, we cancel, matlab we've dealt with it. Now 441, yes, this is the last question, plus 484 minus 625, that's equal to 300. So plus 300 is less than 0. Now let's divide the entire equation by 10. So t square minus 17t plus, t square minus 17t plus 30 is less than 0. So factors of 30 that give you 17, that's minus 15 and minus 2. So minus 15t minus 2t plus 30 is less than 0. So we take t common. That's t minus 15. We take minus 2 common. That's also t minus 15. Now for a second, let's assume this is a quadratic equation and not a quadratic inequality. So this is what we get. Now how do we solve a quadratic inequality? Once we found the x-intercepts, we see what the inequality sign is, and depending on the sign, we decide which part of the curve that we want. We want the part of the curve that's below the horizontal axis, meaning we want this part of the curve. So this part of the curve we get for as long as t is greater than 2 and less than 15. But remember, the question asked us to find out the length of time. So that means from 2 hours to 15 hours, the distance is less than 25 kilometers. So that means the answer would be t is equals to 13 hours. Okay, in case anyone's wondering how we got 13, that's 15 minus 2. Okay, that's how we got 13 hours. For 13 hours, the distance is less than 25 kilometers. And that's it. Job done. Now what I'll do is I'll compile all the past papers of this and share it with you guys. I'll add it in the same link, hopefully by tomorrow, not by tonight. Okay? And I want you guys to practice these questions. For now, this is enough. If needed, okay, if I'm able to compile enough questions, I will do another stream, but I don't think it will be needed. We'll probably do a stream on some other topic. Okay, but I'm going to stop here. I'll see you guys inshallah in the next stream. So take care everyone, be safe, stay indoors and keep preparing. Okay, don't wait for exams to cancel. You never know what's going to happen. Just stay prepared. Okay, so take care. Allah Hafiz. Tomorrow inshallah there will be a mock and I'll announce on my Instagram when the mock is going to be. Okay, so khayal rakhein. Allah Hafiz.